Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's October 14th. This will be our chart lesson for today, and this will be our second chart lesson for the day because I've already uploaded one. If you came in and tried to watch it and heard the buzzing, I apologize, but my computer did an update last night, and for some reason it looked as if it was recording uh, and recording my audio as well, but when I didn't even pay attention to it. I just uploaded the video, and then I got a couple of messages that, hey, the video, there's no audio. So I went back and tried to record again, and something in the update affected my recording, and so I had to reboot again. And once I rebooted, now it's working fine. So evidently, after the update and the restart, something didn't it didn't like something. The software didn't like something, but after another reboot, everything's fine. Everything looked fine before, so, but it was not recording any audio. I've tested it this time, so I know it's working. So here we go, round two. There's not a lot of trades, so this won't take long. It's a very strong uptrend. We got a break and a new high here right at the end of the right into the close, but really strong up day. And just quickly, I'll show you the daily chart. Here's a look at that chart, and you can see how bullish this day was. Notice that we did close underneath the measured move. This blue dotted line, if you can see that, is a measured move equal to the height of the trading range we've been in for a while. But notice we closed under it. We pushed through it for a little bit, but we closed under it. So there's a couple of things to look at here. We may just make a measured move up here and then come back down and make a new low after the break of this channel. But a lot of times when you don't meet these measured legs, and you can see we haven't quite met that measured leg yet, sometimes that means prices are going to rally and go much further in the other direction. So the uptrend may just reestablish itself. We'll have to see where it goes from here. I wouldn't be surprised if we turn down and retest the lows and make that measured move at all. But if we don't, we may be headed higher again. The trend, we may be done with this sell-off and this correction, and we may be headed higher again. So at the very least, I would expect that we're going to retest this high, original high here. But you know, as long as this trend's been going, it could just keep on going from that point on. So we may have had another nice correction and might be on the road to rallying again for a while. We'll just have to see what the price action give us. But right now, we are trading outside of that trend line. We're trading above the midline as well. That purplish line is the midline. But let's speed this up because I've already done this once, and let's go back to the daily chart or the intraday. Okay, here we are back at the intraday chart. You can clearly see it. There's quite a few blue trades. Just about every one of these trades would have given you a runner. Not all of them would have given you a large runner, but you would have got a runner on most of them. Some of them would have given you a rather large runner. There's not a lot of trades though. This is a spiking channel. We actually had an early spike up into this channel, which is just a big spike up into this blue channel. Now, if you subscribe to our membership and you see my mid-morning chart, this was the actual red channel. I had a different blue channel on here too, but it turned out to be the red one. And this I just changed the colors because the blue is a little easier on the eyes. So this blue channel was originally the red channel on the mid-morning chart. So, but it's just a spiking channel, and we didn't really come back to it till almost 2 o'clock. So you didn't get a lot of chance to trade it. You had to trade these other channels within it and these other trends, and there's even some trends in here like so. And this one really is more like a little spiking channel too. It's probably more like that right there. So you'll be able to see a little better when we zoom in a little bit more, but let's do that now and go through the trades. You had to be a little patient this morning. 7 o'clock came just as we're making this high. Now we had a break and a new high in place, and then we're just working sideways. So you got to be real careful about going long here. And I don't see anything I really like to the short side either. So you just have to be careful here. This was a really strong move up. and prices are not selling off here. They're just going sideways. So you have to trade this like a range. This is more like congestion. Congestion is just a micro range. So you have to trade this like a range. And I got a lot of emails and a lot of questions in the forum about about congestion trades today failing on people. And you just have to be very careful. There's no rule that says you can't trade in congestion. But if you do trade in congestion, you're going to have some failures. So you got to be really careful with them. So if you're not a seasoned or what I would call a very good seasoned chart reader, if you're still learning and all, just don't trade congestion, because you're going to have more losers than you probably have winners, and you're going to have some trouble. So there's just not any really good setups in here. If you want to go short, maybe you take that trade, but look out, it's just stacking sideways. Everything's still above the EMA. It's just a risky trade. Now, you might have looked at it like a first entry and a second entry on the failure right there. So if you took that failure, the only problem is you're going short right into the supportive right that's across there. And so that could be a problem. It turns out it would have worked, but I don't like going short way down here, especially with that tight a channel. So I think you want to skip that, and then suddenly you get the close outside it, a move to a new low, and you got this big bullish bar. Well, I'm looking to go long on a failed breakout, because most breakouts fail. So that's the other reason I don't like going short there. I didn't put the measured moves on here. We didn't quite get there at all, because you got a trend line up through here. So notice where we went to on the high side, right to the measured move, and then we backed up and started bouncing off this until this turned to support. So, and that's what you want to see. You want to see it test this a few times and give you some strong support, and then go long. So, but let's get back to this trade. You're moving down, you get to break a new low, and it's that bar open on its very low and closed on its very high. I like going long there on that failed breakout, because you'll at least probably come back and test this high again if you don't continue with the new uptrend. So after this strong a trend up and only going sideways with no real correction, there's a chance there's some more upside potential left here. We pull back, we make a first entry, we pull back again, make a second entry short, it fails. I like going long there. You do have to go long right into that resistance, but with this being a failure, so it's a trap, and the fact that we just pushed through, I feel a lot better about going long there than if we'd have never broke through there. If this wasn't up here and we just turned down right there, I'd never in 100 years say go long right there. But I like this based on the trap, because I guarantee you a lot of people were trading this like a range, and they went short right there on that inside bar, when you're only allowed to go short up here on the signal bar. And you're going to get people that go short right here that don't know any better, that aren't good traders, that aren't chart readers, and they get trapped. And so now, and you get all these top pickers, so guaranteed we're probably going to at least test that high if we don't make a measured move up, and we actually run up, and then we try to take it back down as a failure, but it just can't. But there's no other setup in here. This would be the only bar I'd be willing to go long on right here, and we never get a break. Now somebody else sent me their chart, and I think they did get a break higher here, and they got trapped and stopped out, and then only to see it go exactly where you thought it was going to go. Now, one thing they did find out is that they reloaded their chart, and then it looked more like mine does here, and then you get your entry over here, and this looked like a terrible entry, like it kind of does on my chart. So that's a whole nother story, but just be careful entering in this stuff. If you're going to enter, you got to have room to scalp out before you get back to these highs across here. I mean, on here, I think you got just enough room to get out before that high, but this was the real high right here, these 3-bar matching, and there's plenty of room there. And you can see it didn't matter, because now it takes off, and we draw our trend line right there, and maybe that's there's a trend working up through here. Readjust this. It's moved a little bit. And that turns out to be, and you get an easy runner on that, and it's off to the races. and then we get to the upper side of the yellow channel, which happens to be the upper side of the blue channel, and then we start working down here. I don't like going to short here, although there's a first entry, second entry. So when it breaks lower, it's a failed second entry long, but there's not much room back to that trend line right there. And this is congestion again, and the trend is up. So I don't like going short there. It would have worked, but you see it's not long before it bounces, and then you try to make a retest and you get a higher low right there. I like going long again because that's the first break of this yellow channel, and then we're headed higher again. And again, you get a runner there. And then we just start working side. I mean, this was the MO all day. We work sideways, maybe pull back just a little, and then zoom, it takes off. You work sideways, pull back a little, and then zoom, it takes off. Same thing here. It works backwards, a little sideways, zoom, it takes off. Same thing it did down here. It zooms up, works sideways, sells off a little bit, and does the same thing right here. So when you start to see that pattern, pay attention to it, because now there's a chance that later on, if it continues to do that, you kind of know what the pattern is and what to expect and how to maybe read that congestion. So anyway, I like that higher low. It takes off and then it zooms up and then it kind of works across, sells off a little bit, works up, and then finally it zooms off again. But here, you've already had a break of this yellow channel and a new high. So this is much more concerning. You got to be real careful here. In fact, if you'd got back below the EMA here with a failure, I might have said go short, because the blue channel has not been confirmed and the yellow one appears to be over. But guess what? It bounces off this yellow channel and confirms it, comes back right here. I like this one because you got a new low, first entry, second entry, it fails. Look how bullish that is right off the EMA key entry point. Go long right there and you get another runner. Boom. And then what does it do? It starts working sideways again. And this time, instead of a failure out the low side that sends it higher, you get a failure out the top side that sends it lower. And what happened here is you probably get a bunch of people that enter on this breakout, and you already had a bunch of people loading up on the shorts. So they run their stops and it runs up real quick, and they get a bunch of people that chase it up, and then suddenly the buying dries up and boom, it drops down. And I mean, it dropped strongly in only 3 bars there. And it runs everybody out. All the people that were chasing it up here says, oops. And all the people that were top picking suddenly find out when it turns back up here that they made a mistake and the trend is not over yet. So that's the reason we tell you, don't try to pick tops. Yeah, every once in a while you'll get a move like this and you'll get something out of it. I don't know if you could have got in that trade because it gaps over and just keeps going, gaps over. So you probably couldn't have, you may not could have got in that trade regardless. I don't think it's worth taking though, because the trend is up and they're probably just running a trap here or something, and next thing you know it'll be going higher, which it does. I don't think you can enter out of this congestion below the EMA. That's real tempting right there. You could say first entry, second entry, and when it broke higher it's a failure. And you would have gone long above the EMA, but I just think that one's too risky. We could have come on back to the trend line here. And if there's not, this trend was over, but you would still expect a retest based on this second yellow trend up through here. So, but I just don't think that's the place to enter. But notice how it runs up, and you get a first entry and then a second entry. So when it breaks higher right there, that's a failure. That's probably going to be good for a second leg up at a minimum. So you get the break and 2 legs up, and then we're working back to the trend line again. Again, there's too much congestion here. I don't see anything I like. There is a failed second entry long, but you got to go short right into the EMA, right into the mid line of this little range, and it's an uptrend. So no reason to be thinking short there. Runs down, tests this support a couple of times, and then goes higher. This trade is right off the key entry point down here. It's right off this key entry point. The problem is you got this channel working down, and it's a little bit congested as well. You could say, hey, there's a triple, quadruple test there. It bounced off this trend line here. It's above the EMA. If you have enough room back there and you want to be aggressive, you could take that trade. but I'd be very careful with it. And actually, by this point, what you can look at is that we've seen this same little pattern over and over here. Right here, right here. I mean, you see you're going sideways, you kind of sell off and then bounce. You're going sideways, kind of sell off and bounce. Going sideways, sell off and bounce. Going sideways, sell off and bounce. Same thing here, kind of going sideways, sell off and bounce. Going sideways, sell off and bounce. Going sideways, sell off, and you would expect it to possibly bounce again. So that's why it's not. I at least mark that one green, because by the time you get to here, you've got a lot more information telling you that this is a repeat pattern that we've seen all day. Back in here, you've already had a break in a new high of this yellow one, and you don't know this blue is in play, so it's a little more risky to do it here, but you see it still works. It gives you the same pattern a couple of times, but I'm not willing to risk it here. But once we continue to see that all the way up, and then we get the bounce here, it pretty much confirms, tells you this trend line is probably valid. Even though we go ahead and get a break soon after and a move to a new high, it's still valid in my opinion. You can see where we're turning down off the highs of it. You can see where we're reacting to the midline of it. By this time, you got a lot more information. It's still an aggressive trade, don't get me wrong. But that was the reason I marked that one and not a few of these others down through here, because you didn't have that much information at that point. You got to go with what the chart tells you. And so we're reading the chart. We're not just taking second entries. We're not just taking, a bar because it looks bullish and it's an uptrend. It's got to be, the context has to be correct. And so just keep that in mind, and you need evidence. And so be careful taking these trades in this congestion, because I got so many people contacting me today about failures in it, and most of the time they didn't have room to scalp out, or it was not a very good signal bar. A lot of basic stuff that you could use if you filter your trades. I know it's hard to watch this thing go without you, because that's what happens. You get in this congestion and it drops and it sails off and it traps everybody, and then they take it back up again, and you watch it zoom up because they're running all the stops, and the people that got run out are jumping back in again, and so it just powers it right back up again. That's what happens when you see these big moves like this. It happens every time, and that's what's going on. Happened right here. So people are afraid they're going to miss that. So, but what you have to understand is they're trapping people out, and then they're running it up. So don't get trapped out. Don't enter too early and get trapped out, and then watch it run without you. And then when it starts running, don't chase it, because most of the time it'll get you in trouble. And that's what happened right here. That people started chasing that trade, and then boom, it sells off and they get hammered, only to watch it take off and go exactly where they thought it was going to go. It's very frustrating, but you got to understand what prices are doing and why they're doing it, or you're going to be the one getting trapped instead of the one taking advantage of the trap. You want to be taking advantage of the trap traders, not being in there in the party with them, because it's a pity party. Trust me, it's a sad feeling to get trapped out only to watch it go exactly where you thought it was going, then some. So don't be on the wrong side of these things. Understand what they're doing. They can't take it higher here. And so finally they let it break out the low side. They trap all these shorts in. They trap all these longs out. And then the buying comes back in. And that finally allows them to push through. They still had trouble here going higher, but eventually they did the same thing again. They let they let the shorts pile up here, and then all of a sudden it's going higher, and then boom, they got all exit, and it just rockets up. So understand the game they're playing and be on the right side of it. Don't be so impatient that you got to enter thinking you're going to miss something, because you'll just get hammered is what will happen to you. So anyway, second chart lesson for today. Apologize for the first one with no volume. Hopefully this one comes out great. I'm going to wrap it up. This is Thursday, so no chart lesson tomorrow. We'll be back again Monday, though. I'll see you on Monday. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.